Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the greatest time of the day. From the center of the universe, New York City, it's the main event you've been waiting for. It's time to go in the cage with Cyclone.
That's right, everyone. It is episode number 222 of In the Cage with Cyclone. And as it says in my underwear, I am in fact Cyclone. Alright, so much to talk about, but first let me just say, guys, go on Facebook, type In the Cage with Cyclone, and click like. It's really simple. You can follow me, you can possibly enter raffles if you want, and win free stuff. Who doesn't like free? You can follow me on Twitter, it's CYCIE19. You can read all my articles on boneheadpics.com. And of course, it's cyclonecomedy.com for everything about me. Which, of course, the site has to be updated, but that's a whole other topic. Later on today, we're going to be talking about UFC middleweights. We have another dream fight. And, of course, the very, very popular Facebook question from you guys. One lucky winner will, in fact, win a prize. All that will be coming up in a few seconds, right after this.
This is Frank Edgar. This is the Barbarian Tim Bosch.
I'm World Series of Fighting undefeated lightweight champion Justin Gaethje.
MMA legend, UFC Hall of Famer, Iceman. Check it out. And if you got the guts, step in the cage with Cyclone.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Okay, let's talk right off the bat about UFC recap. The Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, was home to UFC Fight Night 108. Here's the deal. What a performance by Brian Bam Bam Barberena. I mean, he starched Joe Proctor. He had so much starch in him, he looked like one of my t-shirts coming out of the laundry mat. Alexis Davis continued to just do enough to squeak on by. I think Brandon, the Assassin Baby Moreno, with his win over Dustin Ortiz, now has to be in consideration to take on DJ for that flyweight championship. I really, really believe that he's starting to get to the level of saying what if with him. You know, he's 14-3. He has now 10 submissions. He's on an 11-fight winning streak. The kid deserves a shot. Yeah, I know everyone's going to say Joseph Benavidez, Henry Cejudo, blah, 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 blah. A whole bunch of people all lined up for DJ, but DJ keeps beating everybody. I think Brandon Moreno might just be the one to, say, knock off DJ finally. I don't know. What can I say about Platinum Mike Perry? I mean, again, another win by this guy. And forget about the RKO out of nowhere. That elbow he threw on Jake Ellenberger's jaw came out of nowhere. And he goes on to impress. But as we all know, that the top of the welterweight division, there's a lot of starch-ass killers. And I don't know how someone like a Mike Perry would handle himself with those top guys. Moving along, John Dotson, unanimous decision. Let me give him the golf clap for that. Although, you know what? Look, Eddie Wineland is a fan favorite. Everybody loves this kid. But Dotson's just so much better. I mean, here's the deal. He was so quick, so accurate. He was like laser precision is what I would consider John Dotson on Saturday night. And here's something that's pissing me off. Fighters continue to miss weight. Cutting weight is something that I have harped on for, since day one, actually. It's an archaic thing. You should fight at your walk-around weight. I've said it a trillion times, and I'll say it a trillion more. For Marcos de Lima to now, for the second time in a row, miss weight at light heavyweight, not only should the UFC punish him by upping the normal 20% to the 30%, which is what they just did with him, but what they need to say is, dude, you're no longer a light heavyweight, you're a heavyweight. That's where you're fighting, or you could go somewhere else. In our company, you are a heavyweight. He was taking on OSP, and OSP is, as far as I'm concerned, an enigma. I have never been an outwardly fan of his, but I do give, obviously, props to anyone who steps in the cage and throws down, because it's something I can't do. So I give props to him as a fighter. Am I a fan of his? No. Never have been. Probably will never be either. But he was in there against a much heavier fighter. He ended his 3-fight losing streak. And honestly, talking about like elbows out of nowhere, that Von Flue choke coming out of nowhere. I mean, he was in a guillotine, and I mean one of the only real counters, if you have the reach and the right angle, is a Von Flue choke. And doing that, I mean, just it proves that he's not as dumb as he looks. All right, he has the brains, and I'll say, you know, he's 20-10 now, so I give him credit. All right, and that's all I'm going to say on him. Moving along, one of our own here in the Northeast, raging Al Iaquinta, coming back from his self-imposed limbo, self-imposed temporary retirement, contract arguing with the UFC, comes back after a very, very long time away from the cage, and he tears right through the Lionheart Diego Sanchez. As a matter of fact, first of all, Diego has more nicknames than I got a pair of underwear. Number 2, Diego, and whether you are a pot smoker, a heroin dealer, any other type of drug, I'm not going to say you're right or you're wrong for doing what you do, okay? But Diego definitely has some issues. First of all week long, in every interview he did, he sounded kind of spaced out. He really, really did. So I kind of had a feeling something was up, and sure enough, he had done some quote-unquote tainted bad medical marijuana in the week, and Al tore right through him 138 of round one. That is a starching beyond belief. And talking after the fight, Al said, I don't know necessarily if I want to keep fighting. The money in real estate is so good. Now look, I'm a former real estate agent, okay? I did that for a while. I did that for a short while, and I had to end it because, and I don't really want to say this, of course it means, I don't mean this to any of you people listening right now, but I usually don't like people. I am not a people person. And not being a people person, you shouldn't be in real estate. But Al Iaquinta is a people person. So he is doing really good in real estate on Long Island. There's a lot of money to be made. And no punches, no kicks, no boo-boos, no waking up sore the next morning. He could go to the gym, train, spar, go sell real estate, and come home and live a very happy, rich life. But I think if he decides not to fight anymore, it's a shame, because he is such a talented fighter. Is he ever going to challenge for a title? I don't know. I'm not a UFC matchmaker, although I would like to be. I think, honestly, he is someone that should stick it out a couple more years. So this way, in his old age, he doesn't say, what if? Where could I have done? Where could I have gone? What could I have done in the cage? And that leads us to the main event Saturday night. And yeah, I was going with Artem, and a lot of people gave me grief for it. But the fact of the matter remains, anyone who says Artem is only in the UFC because he's one of Conor's boys doesn't know what they're talking about, honestly. He proved he has a chin. He proved he has heart. He proved he could stand in there and go the full 5 rounds with someone like a Cub Swanson. Cub was number 4 going into the fight. He probably is going to get a tick up in the rankings to number 3. I don't obviously think he's going to be 2 or 1, but I think Cub Swanson now also is someone that has to be considered in the title picture. As a matter of fact, post-fight, he said to Brian Stan that he wants the winner of Max Holloway and Jose Aldo. And honestly, I think he deserves it. But he might need one other fight first. And I think that should be against the winner of the Yair Rodriguez and Frankie Edgar fight. Yeah, man, Cub's vicious. I don't think that there's any other way to describe it but vicious, and he is what he is, and I'd like, look, him against Jose will be fun. Him against Max would be fun. Him against Yair would be fun. Him against Frankie Edgar would be fun. So you cannot go wrong on his next fight. And it has to be one of those 4. I'd just rather see him, Yair, Frankie win a first, just to get a little bit more. I want to go backtrack a little bit further now to the UFC on Fox card and just say, holy smokes. Tom Duquesnoy is such a blue chip prospect. This is what makes, combat sports and especially MMA so much fun, is when these young kids, like Bellator has Aaron Pico, Tyron Fortune, all those young kids. UFC has someone like Tom Duquesnoy, and he's such a highlight. They wanted to sign him 3 years ago. He said no. He wanted more seasoning. So he worked on the craft, and it's showing dividends. And this kid is going to be someone that challenges for a bantamweight title very soon. He's now on a 6-fight win streak. He's 15-1 with one no contest, even though nobody really counts those. But yeah, man, I'm not going to get into the rest of the main card, but you guys can read on boneheadpicks.com my article, and I break down all those fights. I just wanted to go into Tom Duquesnoy. Now, it should be noted that Frank Mir's 2-year suspension was announced by USADA. Now, look, USADA is doing a good thing, okay? We need to crack down on anyone taking any type of performance-enhancing drug. Baseball's done it, and other sports are trying it too. So their heart's in the right place. But for the Olympics, if you take an aspirin, a Tylenol over the counter for just a headache, that can come back as a positive failure, and you could get popped for it. So USADA needs to change a little bit of their rulings. These pro athletes are the finest tuned machines on the planet, bar none. All right? They watch every little gram, every ounce of every little thing they do. Frank Mir was in Australia. Okay? Frank Mir ate kangaroo meat. Kangaroo meat apparently was tainted. Now, like your grandmother always used to tell you, and my grandmother used to tell me, you are what you eat. So when you eat a tainted product, guess what? You're going to get popped with a failure of a drug test. It's just the way it is. What he was popped for, by the way, if you don't know, was oral Turnbull. That's the generic name. The technical name is so long I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I would butcher it like a butcher. But it's a 2-year suspension they popped him for, retroactive to last April, which means he gets to be eligible April 2018. April 8th, 2018, to be exact. He's 37 now. Comes back, he's 38, 39, missing 2 years. I don't know. And he's even asked the UFC for his release so he could go fight somewhere else. They have not replied to that request. And nor do they have to. Should they? Look, it would be the nice thing, but in business, who exactly is nice? Nobody. I think that what USADA needs to just do something. Look, their testing is good. Okay, they have everything on track. But if you can prove that you had tainted food in your body, I don't know. I think it's just a bad situation, as they say. Moving along, John Jones possibly coming back, UFC 214 against Mr. Daniel Cormier, finally. Unless, of course, someone gets a boo-boo or pulls out and something derails that fight once again. As of right now, it looks like it's going to co-main event Jermaine and Cyborg for the women's featherweight title. Look, I don't think John coming in against DC without a warm-up fight first is a smart move. I really, really don't. He had ring rust when he fought OSP. He's going to have ring rust again. DC's going to get his back, slap a rear naked choke on him, and choke him out. Now, if they really want John to have a true fighter's chance and take that strap from DC, let him get another warm-up fight first. You can't just, say, oh, we need to go after money immediately. Yes, the company does have, the owners, the company, they have bills they have to pay because of that $4.2 billion sale. They need to do the smart thing by John and give him a warm-up first. Thug Rose. She is a little tenacious beast, is how I can describe her. What she did to Michelle Waterston on Fox, and I know I said I wasn't going back to that card, but she now has cemented herself as whoever wins between Joanna and Jessica Andrade, she has to get. She needs to be next in line. Now, Joanna is a holy terror. She is a tornado in there. As she calls it, Joanna Championship. Take away my championship from me. Nobody take my belt. I think if someone could, it could possibly be Thug Rose. I also want to say congrats. Congrats to Ronda Rousey and Travis Brown on their engagement. Now, that being said, I hope that Ronda is at peace with herself, at peace with what her career was, at peace with what her judo career was before she got into the UFC. And she goes, be's a wife, settles down completely, has a family, and much happiness to her. I say that as someone who was not a fan of hers, but I respected the hell out of her and what she did for women in MMA. I think it's time that she settles down and starts the family, Travis Brown, on the other hand, Travis, bro, if you're listening to this, or if someone hears this, please send it to him. I hope Ronda's not the next person you beat. Because if you try to beat on Ronda, Ronda will kick your butt. I think that as I read this little note coming to me. Okay, that's nothing. Anyways, sorry about that. There was another possible free agency signing, strawweight challenger, Valerie Letourneau, leaving UFC, heading over to Bellator. I think it's good for her. She was caught in, small fish, big pond in the UFC. Bellator, she has a better chance to win a championship. And that brings me to the next person, Gegard Mousasi. There is such a logjam at middleweight in the UFC that, quite frankly, if Mousasi was to leave, yeah, it would be, it's sad to see him go, but in Bellator, Mousasi can do what he wants to do, hold a belt. Now look, him and his people have said he only wants to go to the highest bidder. With him, it's all about money. Nothing more, nothing less. It's the dollars he wants. He has the relationship with Scott Coker going back to Strikeforce. See, now I wish I had a cough button. But I think that if he goes to Bellator, it would be a very, very, very good move for him. I see him dominating there. Him against maybe people like Michael Chandler would be fun if they decided to throw down. But that being said, the UFC needs to loosen up that logjam. There's so many people at middleweight that it's like a traffic jam on the streets of Manhattan, You have to get some people to go down side streets and loosen things up. You let him walk because you signed Jacare to an 8-fight deal. And then you also tell Mr. Chris Weidman, who I really, really like, nothing personal against him, but you're moving up to light heavyweight. I think him at middleweight is done. But I want to remind everyone that you guys can all go on to Facebook, type in the Cage with Cyclone, click like, follow the page, be interactive with me on the page. You can win raffles every single UFC pay-per-view. I hold raffles for really cool prizes. T-shirts, hats, programs, signed photos, signed posters, unsigned photos. You name it, we auction it off. Not auction. It's a raffle. There's a difference because I'm not charging anybody money, so it is in fact a raffle. And for every one of these podcasts, go on the page, ask me a question on that particular thread. If your name is picked, you win a prize. How easy is that? How much fun is that? It's free. Who doesn't like free? I keep saying it, but I can't get an answer. Who don't like free? So, like the Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at CYCIE19. Go to boneheadpicks.com. Go to the right up on top. Scroll down on more sports. Go to it's UFC and wrestling, but it's just really MMA. And you can read every article I write. And I'm a really good writer. And of course, as always, as usual, it's CycloneComedy.com for everything about me. And I also have lots of really cool gifts you can buy there. Now, later on in the show, be talking about Bellator, be talking World Series of Fighting, be talking about some other companies, and we have the dream fight of the day, and we have the raffle, all coming up right after this.
Hi, I'm Jim Miller.
This is Dan Morigliata.
I'm Derek Brunson.
I'm Nick the Carney Lentz, and you're locked into the Cage with Cyclone.
Hey everyone, I'm back. Okay, Now, I want to remind everybody, right here on BWRN on Spreaker, it's the Sports Book Podcast with Kevin Goatee and Jeffrey Paul. Both of those guys are really funny, really knowledgeable on sports, and they help you place bets. Who doesn't like to bet? I know I used to. There's Night Meds with Frank Vignola. Frank, that is actually a really, really great show, by the way. As is Red Light Podcast Redux with Gina Savage. And later today, there's a whole lineup of shows coming up. I'm kicking the whole thing off every second and fourth Monday of the month. Let's see. Moving along, let's talk about the aforementioned Belly Tour. 178 was in the lovely Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. As I was talking before about youngsters, Tyrell Fortune is now 3-0, all 3 wins by TKO. Actually, his first 2 were by TKO. This last one, beating Branko Busic, was actually united. I gotta learn to spit these words out. A unanimous decision. But Ed Ruth, another young gun, is now 3-0. All 3 by TKO. He beat David Mundell. This kid's wrestling is, well, him, Tyrell, Aaron Pico in the UFC. These signings now in all these companies, all these young, good wrestlers are shaking it up, because it's not just stand-up, shot for shot anymore. Now guys are going to have to be completely well-rounded, Jordan Young, geez Louise, 7-0, 5 submissions, all in the first round. This one coming with a Darcy choke over the Bear Tim Karen. Wow. He's normally a middleweight. The fight was at catchweight. And Jordan Young is someone who should go now. Now, I just said a little while ago, the UFC's middleweight division is logjammed and can't afford any more people. But I would love to see how Jordan Young would match up against guys in the UFC. How he would handle someone like a Jacare, or even a Chris Weidman for that matter, or anyone like that. I think those fights would be really, really fun to watch. Scooting all the way down, Kaz Jima, the local kid out of Greenwich, Connecticut, getting the biggest pop of the night. Everyone was there to support him, which is always a good thing to have people, support you. But him winning with a vicious knockout of Nick Alley in his pro debut, that is the way to start a career. It's so good to see someone in front of a home crowd for your debut kick booty, and to do it 319 into the first round. That absolutely proves that it was a good signing by Bellator to bring him in. Obviously, Elimele McFarlane winning by an armbar submission over Jessica Middleton was quite impressive. You take someone like Alimale. She's sort of, if you don't know what she is a Demetrius Johnson meets a karate hottie. If you combine those two people's skills, you get Alimale. She's really, really impressive. And, hey, good for her. Golf clap time. Of course, we got to talk about the 4th time rematch between Daniel Strauss, who was champion, losing that featherweight belt to Patricio Pitbull Freire. Here's the thing. These two are each other's foils. These two can fight 100 bazillion times. Yes, there is a number, 100 bazillion, and that is how many times these two need to fight. As a matter of fact, they should never fight anybody else. Just fight each other. For the rest of your careers, every 2 to 3 months, step into the cage and beat the snot out of each other. Okay? Because what they will do is continue to trade back and forth wins. Although this is now the 3rd time Pitbull won. It's always a fun fight between these two. You know, they give everything they have. They empty their tanks. Both guys leave completely gassed. And with Pitbull winning, oh God. See, I really need a cough button here, you know. I think I got to talk to some engineers and see if we could get like a cough button, you know. But I'm sorry, I'm such a pig. Anyways, with Pitbull winning by another guillotine choke, it proves that his game is once again improving, you know. Moving along, shall we? One championship was in Manila, Philippines, with Edward Foeling taking out Ev E.T. Ting. Someone's knocking, but you can't come in. I guess that's from upstairs. See, I really need a cough button. E.T. Ting had that 4-fight win streak stopped, and he was really, really impressed in those wins. Now, here's the thing. You know the case that sometimes you gain more knowledge by a loss than by a win? I think that is what happens in this case. I think this loss makes Ting grow that much better. And then in Legacy, Jerome Rivera once again winning, improving to 6-0 by unanimous decision over Zach the Warrior Riley. And Jerome, you know, if Jerome came to the States, let me tell you something about Jerome. Out of his 6 fights, I've watched 4 of them. And he is someone that is pushed to a level of, how can we say, wherever his opponents are, if he's in the cage with an opponent that he's much better than, his level goes down. If he's in there with a much better fighter, his level raises. So it's an up and down seesaw sort of deal with Jerome. I want to see him continue to grow, and I'm hoping he is. To scoot along. The UFC is quiet this week. There's really actually nothing going on this week except for on the 5th of May, because May is the next month. Legacy is in Phoenix, and that's headlined by LaRue Burley and James Nakashima. Also on the 5th is Victory FC from Kansas City, Missouri. And that one has their heavyweight title is on the line. Champion Daniel Gallimore is putting his belt up against Razak Al-Hazan, who, by the way, he is like Bilal Muhammad. He's someone that could be very, very dangerous. His stand-up game is strong, and he likes to throw. He's not going to go down to the mat. He's not going to, if it's up to him, grapple around with you and roll around on the ground, And then on the 6th, over in Newport, Wales, England, Cage Warriors 83. And maybe my dear friend Alan Cumming will make a nice long trip from his house and go see Cage Warriors. I've asked him about that before, if he would ever go. And I really, really think that if he could go, this is the card for him to go for. And then the next UFC card is, in fact, UFC 211. And that's not happening till May 13th, so that's a while away. Have another podcast in between. By the way, the next podcast will be Monday, May 8th, 12 noon right here on Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook, on everything. And there will finally be the return of former World Series of Fighting, two-time champ David Branch makes his UFC return against Krzysztof Jotko. And it's such a stacked card. I was talking about it with other people where UFC 211 rates on the all-time cards for the UFC. You have Eddie Alvarez finally returning after his loss to Conor at 205 against Dustin Poirier. Yair Rodriguez against Frankie Edgar. You have Damian Maia against Masvidal. And honestly, I, just like a lot of other people, are wondering if Yair is sent to take out Frankie. Is Masvidal sent to take out Maia and get rid of Frankie and Maia? But it's going to be real interesting fights because Frankie and Damian can ruin a lot of people's plans if they win. Joanna and Jessica Andrade is going to be a great fight. And then the main event itself, Stipe and that heavyweight title against JDS Junior Dos Santos. That's going to be a fun fight. Now, I was talking really fast about World Series of Fighting. Let me tell you what I think of the soon-to-be former World Series of Fighting. They are now, not as of now, they still have, I believe it's either 2 or 3 cards that they have to have as World Series of Fighting. But January 2018, they officially are rebranded as Professional Fighters League. Look, a lot of people didn't like the name World Series of Fighting. Me, I don't care. Call yourself the Fat Pizza Eaters and Athletes. I don't care. I don't care what you call yourself. A name doesn't mean anything to me. Okay? Here's what means something to me. If you go to CycloneComedy.com, I have a bunch of items you can buy. If you go to the World Series of Fighting website, they have 3. They have 3 items. They have hats, they have t-shirts, and hoodies, and Bellator training gloves. That's it. You go to the UFC, they have like a bazillion. And yes, I said a bazillion again. They have a bazillion different things you can buy. For a company to succeed, you need lots of items to be purchased. It's one of the mainstays that keep fans invested in your company. If I can't buy something and give you money and invest myself in your company, I'm not going to be a fan. I think they need their marketing department to just slap their logos on everything. They need posters to sell. They need programs. They don't even have programs. I was at the World Series of Fighting event on New Year's at the Garden. Well, at the theater at the Garden. They don't sell programs. You need to have programs. Keychains. A bunch of stuff. You know? Now, where Bellator does succeed over the UFC is they always bring in old-time MMA people to do signings with the fans. Meet and greets with Bellator is fantastic. On the flip side, the UFC's press conferences, except for the post-fight press conference, the UFC's open workouts, everything the UFC basically does is open to the public, and they're free. They could actually charge money if they wanted to, and people would pay. As a matter of fact, even their celebratory weigh-ins are open to the public and free. Bellator, however, everything is just for the media only. Now look, as a writer, as a member of that media, I like that. I like the fact that I can still go to those things. But honestly, as a member of the public, that's not right. If I can't buy any of your billions of different types of souvenirs, if I can't go to your press conferences or your weigh-ins, I'm not going to be invested, you know? But anyways, with the new people that were brought in to purchase the company, and they were sold right after the UFC sold for that $4.2 billion, the World Series of Fighting, excuse me once again, folks, was sold for $25 million. Okay, and they were sold to a group of people that are very, very smart in the sports world. Ted Lewis, Ted Lerner, Mark Leschi, Russ Ramsey, Don Davis. All these people that I just mentioned are the main cogs, and there's a bunch of other investors also. But they are the people that run Washington sports, the Capitals, the Mystic, everything except for the Redskins, because that's all Daniel Snyder. Geez, I wish I had some water. I wish I had a cough button. But anyways, they bought the company for $25 million. And these are smart people. They run sports teams. Okay? So they should know better. What they're doing is they're completely getting rid of regular fights, regular fight cards, the format that works in mixed martial arts. And what they're doing now is going to a regular season that starts in January. The best record fighters move on. and they form a playoff format, and fighters also get a regular paycheck. Now, first of all, that's all well and good, but I don't see how that's going to make a company survive. I just don't see how it's possible, number one. And number two, I really, really, really don't see how this format of a regular season is going to work. What happens if 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 guys have the same records? Who gets a better seeding? Is it by KO? Is it by tap out? And who's to decide what's better, a KO or a tap out? Because remember, in MMA, the main logical goal is to hit and not get hit. So that would lead to a submission being more impressive. But fans like knockouts. They want to see people get knocked the F out. So who's to decide? It's a mess. It's never going to work. But what I want to do now is to go into the grab bag right off the bat and pick a number. And we have number what number is that? That is number 9. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, Mr. Frank Merlino. Frank Merlino, you've won stuff before. Guess what? You win again. Your question, keeping up with Cub, does he fight for the title next? If not, what is next for him? Well, like I said earlier today, I think Cub is worthy of the title shot, but I would like to see him get one more fight in him first. And that would be the winner of Frankie and Yair Rodriguez. I would like to see that happen. Or I'll tell you what's even better. Him, Cub Swanson, against Ricardo Lamas. Lamas is one, I believe, level higher than him in the rankings. Of course, technically rankings don't mean anything. But I think that would be a good fight. He is a solid fighter. I think Ricardo's ground game matches up good with Cub's stand-up. I think it would be a fun fight. So, there's your answer. And Mr. Merlino, Frankie boy, I will be in touch with you when I get home later this evening. And I will send you your prize. Now, I am going back into the grab bag, pulling out 2 numbers, and we're going to see which 2 fighters fight. Because that's what we do here on In the Cage with Cyclone. Okay, we have number 50 and number 95. 50 and 95. So let me go get the book. 50 and 95. 50 and 95. I feel like I'm playing bingo. Oh boy. Ha 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 ha. I laugh because, folks, this is going to be a fun one. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, in the red corner, he continues to be an active fighter. As a matter of fact, he will be fighting in New York coming up very soon. He has a record of 35, 12, and 1 with 1 no contest. It's Vanderlei, the ex-murderer Silva. And he is fighting in the blue corner. Oy vey. He is one of the iconic legends of the sport, all-time greats. A record of 38, 13, and 2. He is a welterweight. He is Hayato Mach Sakurai. Now look, it's not even a question in my mind. Silver's going to get starched in that. He really, really is. Yes, Silva has the BJJ, but you know what? Hayato does too. And when you have an iconic guy like Hayato in the cage, it's hard to beat someone like that. I think that just mixing those two up would be lots and lots and lots of fun, you know. I can see Silva taking it to the mat. I can also see Silva trying to stand up and slug it out, but Hayato, man, is going to take it. He's going to want it on the ground. Whether he forces it to the ground or he gets taken to the ground, either way, that bout is going to stay on the mat. And honestly, I really think that fight would end in the second round. I couldn't see it going more than 2 rounds. Not at all. I want to just say that if you guys like looking for fighters that no one's really heard of, not that they haven't heard of, I shouldn't say that because that's not good. That's not right. Fighters that aren't on everyone's radar. Go watch the videos of Super Sodiq Youssef. Right now, he's 5-0. He fights in a Victory Fighting Championship. He's 23 years old, so he's still the climb of knowledge is still rising with him. He fights out of Camp Springs, Maryland. He's with Team Lloyd Irvin. He's 5'8". He is a wrestler extraordinaire. Not like the WWE wrestler. I'm talking about, Greco-Roman, like real amateur. The whole professional amateur wrestling is a toss-up, but he is a wrestler. And he is someone that can definitely be looked at as having a very bright future for some company, whether it's Bellator, whether it's the UFC, down the lines, because like I said, he's only 23, he's improving, he still has lots of time. I don't know if he's championship material though, but he's someone that's good. So here's the deal, guys. Facebook, In the Cage with Cyclone. Twitter, CYCIE19. CycloneComedy.com. BoneheadPicks.com. Read all my articles. And until May 8th, everyone, this is Cyclone saying, just because you are not an athlete doesn't mean you cannot be an athletic supporter. Bye-bye.